Hey, everybody, it's Pastor Rick. Glad you're with me today. I am sitting in my house and glad you joined me for our time together. This is going to be a fun time because I have been thinking about our gathering. This is our prosperity team meeting, by the way. And if you've never been to one, if you're new, we're glad to have you join us. This is where I get a chance to talk. I mentioned in church, if you're new, that I don't talk about money long because there's just not enough time. But I decided that I would come to you and have a conversation. One of our ministers, Sheila Bishop, will join me in a little bit and we'll continue our conversation together and entertain some of your questions. So if you have questions about money along the line we're talking about, then I will invite you to join us. There is a book called The Legacy Journey that we've been traveling through with Dave Ramsey. It's a great book. We're in chapter 5 if you want to kind of track along with us. And this is a good book. It talks about how to build a financial legacy for your family over the years. It's a great journey, a great trip that you will enjoy. But I'm going to surprise you today with a double header. That's right. As a matter of fact, Sheila Bishop has just heard that I'm going to do this in my last minute. Well, really, I decided yesterday to do this. It's called The Worry Cure. 7 Steps to Stop Worry from Stopping You by Robert Leahy. We've read a book by him before in our book club, but Robert Leahy is a great writer. Robert Leahy, Lehy, I hope I said his name right. Great guy, good communicator. The Worry Cure, 7 Steps to Stop Worrying. Now, let me tell you why I have decided to bring Robert in. I'm going to go back first and bring you up to date if you missed where we were in our study. So just kind of get ready to take some notes. I'm going to talk to you about things we've talked about before. But part of the concern, part of the conversation that I've been wanting to have is prosperity is something that I think some people run from. I think Christians, in my opinion, church is not the best place to hear about prosperity personally, because church tends to struggle. Pastors are forced to be timid when it comes to this whole conversation, but which is really unfair because you have to lead a church to prosperity, to have a building, to have television, radio, to have this kind of technology. And by the way, Brian in the background there, hey Brian, staff people working today. You need staff, you need people, you need smart people like Brian around to help you do what you do. And we got a whole bunch of tech, we got a whole department that helps us with our technology, and that costs money, and it's not free, and it shouldn't be free. The Bible said the laborer is worthy of his hire. So having said that, you need money. And you need money to do all the things that we do. The challenge becomes talking about it. So generally what happens, the pastor gets up on Sunday morning and he, gets to the offering part. And if you're the pastor behind the scenes, this is how it goes. Okay, I got to have 2 sermons. I got to have 1 sermon for the message, and then I got to have 1 sermon for the offering, And then you come up with some little quick cliche or something where you can kind of inspire people to give today. Everything in church sometimes is about giving today. That is short-term thinking. That's called poverty living, and it just isn't good. The nature of church, which I'll talk about here a little bit, is that you tend not to have tight margins. And so you end up in an environment that really doesn't prosper that much. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to pull together a team of people who would prosper with me. And we can have some really mature conversations. And it's not just conversations about giving. I want to be clear about that. I'll talk about that a little bit, but not as the main part of our conversation. But I do want you to understand the power of giving and the power of how it works. But you can't give comfortably if you're not prospering. And that's the challenge that people face. They're not prospering. And so my goal is to show you how to prosper, how I see prosperity, what the Bible says about it, and how to guide you to a place where you can get to a better place when it comes to prosperity. So that's what this gathering is about. And it's about helping you do that. So let me just say this before I go any further. Our next meeting is going to be March the 8th on a Saturday. I'm sorry. Did I say March the 8th? Should have been March the 12th. I apologize. March the 12th. Virtual for a while. Schedule is not allowing me to meet in person right now, but I will be meeting with you on March the 12th. There's Sheila Bishop has typed it in the chat. Thank you, Sheila. It's March the 12th. That's right. So I look forward to you joining me. Make a note of that. March the 12th, we'll be back again. And so we're trying to meet twice a month. Sometimes that's possible. And because of my life and schedule, sometimes that's not possible. So March the 12th is our next meeting at the same time at 7 o'clock on the evenings. So welcome to everybody that's watching from all over the country. I got a cousin, and I think she's in. Where's my cousin? My cousin is in Pittsburgh. That's right, right outside of Pittsburgh. Good to see her with us today. And all the other folks, that's right, I did say hey to you, cuz. All my other folks out there, hundreds are watching right now. We had 500 the last time, and we get several more that come after that. So thank you for being with us. And I hope that if you are blessed by this, that you'll come back. Now, let me take you on a journey for a minute, and I want to remind you what our objectives were, why I started this prosperity team. Then I'm going to take you through a brief conversation, which I think is profound, about how we worry about money and what worry says to us about money. I'm going to bring Sheila Bishop in on that conversation. And then I'm going to take you down a little bit of the legacy journey, because one of the things that he talks about, I think in chapter 5, which is where we are, is that, you know, you need to have some plans for your future family, passing wealth down. He even criticizes in chapter 6 those who don't pass wealth down. And he talks about some wealthy people who decided they didn't want to pass any wealth down. He kind of picks on Bill Gates a little bit. It's interesting conversation. So we'll do all of that in just a minute, but let me start with a review of where we were. This is how we started this whole thing last year. Here we go. First of all, we're committed to learning how to prosper, advance ourselves so that we have resources to make a difference in our families. That's one of the major reasons why we're doing it, because we want to make sure we have resources to advance our families and the world around us. It's not just about gathering and talking. It's about being able to say, we want to advance ourselves and our families and the world around us, all three. Secondly, we want to take you beyond the subject of giving, buying things, and going places. Sometimes when you talk about prosperity, all you talk about is, guess what? Buying stuff, getting stuff, going places, and giving money, especially in church. The main conversation in church is give, 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 give. God wants you to give money. God's really anxious about you giving money. You better give some money. You won't be blessed. And so everything is about that. I think God understands why some of you don't give. Your margins are tight. You don't have a lot of extra cash. And some people are just cheap. Now, some of you can give better than you give. Now, you tip God with them little $3 and $4 tips. I was telling people, you know, when our church was in COVID, during COVID season, we lost 400 givers. And all of them were around $1 to $5 givers. They were small givers. It's amazing. I thought, wow, they actually fill out an envelope and turn it in. It's amazing. But people give very small amounts of money sometimes because they don't think about it. So, you know, one of the things we wanted to do is help you understand the power of being a person who's intentionally a giver, consistently devoted to that. We also want to slay the dragon of need so you can have abundant life with money. I want to slay the dragon of need. I wanted you to come on in an environment where you can just talk, and I want you to do that. Get your questions ready, because you're gonna be able to type your questions in, and we'll talk about some of the things that you want to ask us. But there's this dragon of need that it plagues churches. Oh my God. And part of the reason it plagues churches, let me just say this, is because of the percentage of people who give. Now, I hope you're not one of those people. In the average church, I always say this, I said it's like having 10 people, right? Out of 10 people, 1 to 2 work. 8 of them don't work in the average church. So you have this heavy burden that a few people carry, and it becomes this very difficult thing to do. Very, very, very difficult. And the margins, went over our margins today. It was really amazing that we do all the things that we do. The money we give away, thousands of dollars we give away to people. And all that's made possible because people give. And so if you're one of those that don't give, you might want to consider, wherever you go to church, to be a giver, to donate. If you are blessed by a ministry, you should be a person in the fight. I'm a tither. I believe in tithing. Some people say, I don't believe in tithing. Well, that's because you probably don't manage your ministry. And because you're not trying, if you don't pool money together, you're not going to be able to do that. That's why God established tithing. Now, Malachi 3:10 says that there may be meat in the house. Malachi 3:10 and 11. And I really believe that God takes it personally when he blesses you and you don't honor him first. I think that there's a whole thing that the Bible teaches about the importance of honoring God with the first fruits of your increase. And so without going through all of that, though, my main point is the slaying the dragon of need so you can have to give is really an important thing. So we want to talk about that. That's our goal in starting this conversation. And then lastly, we want to explore why churches don't have enough money and don't have resources. And they talk about money, talk about dreams, but don't have enough. Why is it constantly in a state of need? And again, I think the major reason is because they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it in an intelligent way. And they don't read any books about it. They've never once in all the years they've been together had a sit down conversation with people. And I think if you do, you'll learn something. You'll learn why they don't give. You'll learn that sometimes they don't understand what you're giving to. They don't know where the money is going. They're not clear about that. I sat down today with our people. I discovered that we gave $150,000 or so. I get the numbers. Oh my goodness. I was impressed. I was impressed with what they're doing and how they're giving. For example, they gave whopping $150,000 to organizations. They give $140,000 to other events for the community. They give another large amount of money, almost $100,000 to outreaches, close to $400,000 just in our review today. I was impressed. I thought, what a great thing. I think it's great. I think it's something about being able to say what you do with the money. And a lot of people don't give to churches because they don't see where the money goes. So they get confused and they're frustrated. And so it becomes this begging thing with no clear direction as to where you're going. I think that you should be able to give. We started in our church this thing called we called it how can my brain freeze? Oh my goodness. Sheila Bishop, join me, would you please? I need Sheila. Sheila, come up from the ashes. Help a brother out.
Good evening. I have no idea. Hello, everyone.
Exactly. Exactly. It's already there. God showed you this already.
Okay.
It's the fun we're giving to building a future. See?
Build it.
See, you show up and then bam, my brain works. I get it. Building a future. And it's on our giving options when you give. And we're giving to organizations there. We're giving to community events there. We're giving to outreaches. It's all for helping us to build the future. So I'm going to challenge all of our members to join in and give something every month to that campaign to help us do that. Helps us.
So is building a future, you're saying it's designated for special funds?
Yeah, to help us build the future. It's specific. See, out of a church budget, normally what you do is you end up spending money out of the budget to cover these things you want to do for the community. And really, you shouldn't. Really, those things should be paid for out of, for example, missions. You got a mission trip going, right? Don't you have groups going to missions? How many people, where are we going?
We're going to Uganda, July 17th, about 10 days there. And it's a medical mission. And we have a team of about 7 individuals that should be joining us to go.
And we're spending about $20,000, I think, to help them. So that would come out of that fund as an example. Look, and so it's part of our missions area. It's our area where we're giving to help those things happen. So, I think that, my friend, is fascinating. So let me say that's all I want to say about that and how we give it, because some people never know what you do with your money. I think it's important to tell people what you do with your money. It allows us to have staff, allows us to have all the things that we have, facilities, all the things. And so thank you for your giving, folks. Now, let me ask this, Sheila, since you're here. I believe I brought you in earlier than I planned to. There's a book you have not known that I've been reading, right? I mentioned it to you, right?
You mentioned it.
The Legacy Journey is one. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think chapter 5 was fascinating. I don't know if you reviewed it or not already, but chapter 5.
Your work matters. Your work matters. I think it's great.
Yeah, it is. It's great. But I think it's also this whole conversation about wealth and how you leave wealth to your children and all that kind of good stuff. That's a great conversation. I'm going to come to that later. But I want to say what prompted me first was this book on worry. In my life and job, you'll tend to think a lot about resources, right? And the challenge in resourcing, when you talk about it, is you'll tend to worry about them. So tell me, to answer this, do you worry about money? You ever worry about money? Have you ever worried about money?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the one thing that you got to have. And I think about Ecclesiastes that said money is the answer to every matter. So whatever comes up, you need some money. And if you're running tight, it's a problem.
Yeah. Now the book is called The Worry Cure. That's 7 Steps to Stop Worry from Stopping You, by Robert Leahy, and Lehy. If you're looking for his name, Robert Leahy. I am. If you ask me that question, I would say I thought I didn't. But reading this book makes you say, nah, yeah, you're worried a little bit. You get concern. And part of it is, we always have this margin, right? You get to this certain margin. Now, when you read Dave Ramsey's books, I love the fact that he starts out talking about bankruptcy and how he went through all that kind of stuff. And now he's on this prosperity place. He's in a good place. And you can look up his net worth if you want to online. And, I think it's fascinating to see a person get to that place. I'm happy. I think I'm in a good place, but I also think I'm in a challenging place. Always, church money is challenging. So is life. Grass, electric bills. I heard eggs are expensive now. Is that right? I heard they're.
Yes, I think it's related to the bird flu in some of the farms.
Okay, so all of that is true. But you know what? Was in this book. There is a number of wonderful things that he says. Let me read the chapters for you, because I think I always, if you ever read a book, one of the things you do is you go and you look at the chapters and you kind of plow through. I do this kind of a read through thing. And I love this thing. It's divided into 3 parts. And I'm going to tell you the parts are, Sheila. It says the how and why of worry. I think that was a fascinating section. The 7 steps to take control of worry. Those are phenomenal. And special worries and how to challenge them. And we have worry, how to challenge the worry. Now, he said that most of us learn to worry from our parents. They taught us to worry. Don't go outside without a coat, you'll catch a cold.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, simple things like look both ways before you cross the street. And he wasn't saying that that's a bad thing. He was simply saying, in our lives, there are tons of examples of things where in sincerity, as we teach our kids, we're also teaching them to be afraid of everything or a lot of things. So I agree that it can become you become paranoid more than you know. Don't spend all your money.
Does he talk about how you separate being concerned and cautious versus worry? I mean, what's the big difference?
Well, he does. It becomes obvious over time that you should cross the street and look both ways. His point is, if you become afraid of everything, and if it's couched in a way, and when it comes to money and when it comes to finances, and when you read, you can read the Legacy Journal. You get to chapter 5. You read about the wealth saving, because really chapter 5 and 6 seems to be targeted more toward people who have resources, and what they should do and how they should build their wealth and how they should prepare for the future and not be ashamed and get with people who have the same level of wealth in some cases. Even though he says, I have a lot of friends, Dave Ramsey says, from all different levels of income. But when you get to certain levels of income, you need people who can relate to you and you can tell your story and testimony and then not be offended. But I think what's interesting is at whatever level of income you are, whatever level of finances you are, there's a tendency to worry. Mm-hmm. And that orientation, you worry about having too much money and embarrassing yourself, not having enough. Mm-hmm. You worry about having a house that's too small and having a house that's too big. Mm-hmm. And so you can worry can go on both sides of it. But what grabbed me, Sheila, about this book was I found that, it spoke to me at this season of my life. I didn't think that I could even come on today and talk about prosperity without saying I can, if I'm not careful, worry about it. Does that surprise you?
It does. I think probably a lot of people that's listening, when you ask, does it surprise you as it relates to you? Like, I don't necessarily think of you of a person that worries, but yeah, I guess it is a little bit of a surprise, because I don't know that I would attach worry. I don't know if I would say that you worry. Concern, I mean, because when you talk about all the various things you have, even the market, you can have an account that's doing good, and then you just wonder whether or not the market's going to crash.
Exactly. So, I want to go through some of his statements in the book that I thought were profound about worry. Understanding worry. There's a section called Understanding Worry, the how and why of worry, how it starts, how you end up, and the different kinds of worry that people have in their life, and why you keep worrying. This is such a good book. You should get it. He said, first of all, as I said, your parents taught you. Thank you, oh great one in the bag. You are the man, sir. That's the book, folks. Your parents taught you to worry. Where did all this worry come from? He said, it's interesting the worries don't generally describe terrible things happening in their recent lives. In fact, nothing unusual seems to be happening in their lives. No big traumas, few things. But what happens is, he says, over time, worried and overprotective parents, without meaning to, can create environments that create this sense of worrying. And then he says, as you get older, this is interesting too, reverse parenting, that when your parents get old, you start worrying about them. So there's this whole system that you go through, and you're taught to dismiss your emotions. You're taught that somehow everything in your life is up for potential loss. Everything, even when you prosper, you start worrying about whether you're going to lose your wealth and you're not going to have money. When your church grows, this Sunday, you have a great Sunday, right? The next Sunday, you're afraid they're not going to be there. You have a great job, but you're afraid of it. I think all those realities, all those things affect your ability to pass to your kids, which is something that, if I can switch back to Dave Ramsey's book, he talks about the importance of passing wealth is not just about money. It's passing an attitude.
Right.
A good marriage is passing a good health, is passing good attitude, good perspective. And I think if you're not careful, you can become a worrier. And this really landed in my heart today, because there are moments I just really am attacked by that. Worry about this temple. Worry. I said, no, I'm not. I refuse. I'm not to. Or here's another. Shame. Be shamed. Be ashamed. In his book, and back to the book on Balihi, he says that shame is a big deal. It may you're ashamed of prosperity. You're ashamed that you achieved. And so worry and all those things, I think, hinders your legacy. Because even when you prosper and you do well, you have to apologize all the time. Mm-hmm. And that becomes this dominant part of your life. And the things that the Bible says gets lost completely. You don't have the courage and the strength to believe it's okay to be prosperous. It's okay to have money. It's okay to be above only, not beneath. It's okay to not be defeated. And so I love that when a person prospers, they learn how not to worry. And so for me today, this was a tremendous blessing.
We have a question from Charles Singleton. Is Charles asks, would attentive concern be a better way to describe it? Attentive concern.
It's a nice way, Charles, but
it's a diplomatic way.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just plain old worry. It's just, and you know how you know, because you're ruminating. They call that word ruminating. You're sitting there and you're thinking about it over and over and over and over again. Philippians 4 says, whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are true, think on these things. The tendency is to not do that. The tendency is to dwell on what might go wrong, what might not happen. And a lot of that never comes true. I know in my story, a lot of things that I ruminated on and think about, and believe it or not, it depends on what we're talking about. If the margins aren't good enough for you, if your expectation of a certain opportunity doesn't materialize like you planned it to, those things can be very real. And it takes courage and faith to not fall into that. That's why I love this book. I thought it was a great read for me. You need to not allow yourself to think what's the worst possible outcome. I mean, what? Because your mind always goes to what's the purse. You have a little spot. He mentioned you have a little spot on your face. Well, it's probably cancerous. It's probably, you know what I mean? And some people live in that place.
So what are some of the things that you've done, other than, not that that's not enough, quoting the scripture, to help you use as an antidote to worry?
I argue with it.
Oh.
I argue with it.
What does that sound like?
Well, he mentions that in his book as well. But what I do, well, it sounds like this. You should be concerned about, let's say, your sermon. Let's make it that easy for me. And I said, no, I'm not. I've done this for 43 years. I refuse to be afraid. I refuse to. I preached over 50 years. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to allow myself to be dominated by that. So I argue with it. If I think that I need something, I'll say, well, I don't need it right now, as long as I get it, down the road, but I don't have to have it today. I argue with the worry, because what the worry does is it sets up this case in my mind. It sets up this argument, this, for example, you should have been wealthier by now. I said, why? Who said that? Who says that I have to have it by the time I'm this age? Why can't I be happy? And what I've learned, Sheila, is this: it moves. It's evangelistic. If I don't argue with the worry and put it in its place, I tell people this: you have to drive your emotions the way you drive a car. You have to say to yourself, I'm not going to be dominated by any negative thoughts or any negative opinions. I'm not going to allow myself. If the Bible says this, I'm going to read you a verse. I think it's going to be great. Some people want you to read the Bible, right? At some point in this conversation. So I'm going to do something, one of my favorite verses. I'm going to Deuteronomy 28 for a minute, and I want to show you something, because I love this verse. Here's what it says. So if I have a negative, fearful thought that jumps all over me, I'll read this to the negative thought, and I'll read it this way. Now, the text says this. If this is Deuteronomy 28, verse 1. If you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands, I'll give you today, the Lord your God will set you on high above all the nations. So I will say this to that negative thought, to that fear. I have fully obeyed the Lord God to the best of my knowledge. I've obeyed all of his commands. I've exercised today. I've ate right today. I have done all that I know to do. Got up and did my business, took care of my business. I'm convinced that he will set me on high above all the issues I face on earth. That's what I do. That's how I argue back. I argue back with the word. I argue back with what the Bible says. And the Bible says all these blessings will come upon me. I make it personal. And if I obey God, he'll bless me in the city. He'll bless me in the field. The fruit of my womb will be blessed. I begin to say back to the doubt. And that's one of the things I loved about the book, and I loved about his conversations, in the book on this whole topic, because worry keeps pushing you to believe the absolute worst about every single thing. And it ignores what you did. It ignores the facts. It makes you anxious. It keeps you from feeling powerful. It takes away, he says, it takes away this crazy illusion. It puts you in this place where you're supposed to be in control of everything. And if you're not in control of every single aspect of a circumstance, then somehow you're a bad person. If your kids do something, and your co-workers or your boss or company or the country right now, it's not going the direction you wanted to go in, and then you say, oh boy, where are we going? What's happening? I mean, you get caught up in that, and you just worry. You just worry. Watching the news. I'm not against the news. I read the news more than I watch it now. But I am convinced what it does, it makes me feel like it's out of control. Things are just everywhere, laying off people, all this stuff's happening. So I read it. I want to be an informed person, but I refuse to worry about it. I speak the word to my circumstances and to my fears. All things will work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. I speak the word of God to those things that try to intimidate me, because it does. And one of the things I thought was really powerful, he said that worry can make you feel like you're being responsible.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. I should think about this, because that's when Charles made the statement just a minute ago, attentive. Yeah. Charles, I know what you mean, but I can hide in worry, thinking it's a responsible thing to do. It's to sit there and think about this. Well, it's fine, but not all day and all night and become paralyzed with fear. I just don't think that's healthy. And I think when it comes to prospering in money, if you allow yourself to sit there, if you only have $500 and you need $7, sitting there and grieving is not going to give you $200 more. That's not going to help you prosper. You need to come up with a $200 strategy. That's what you need. Or you need to go and call and negotiate. Now, I've done that in the past. When I had trouble, when I couldn't pay somebody, I'd call and say, hey, look, I'm having a little bit of a challenge right now. Can you give me 30 more days? that's how I prospered, by bartering down my need to my ability. So if I had 500, I needed 7. I barter it down to 300. I said, oh, sure, we wait 30 more days. I said, well, thank you. I appreciate that. See, I just solved my problem.
Well, it may be, I don't know. You have that kind of skill set.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach y'all that. That's why I'm here. That's what this is about. This is all about helping people get the plan. You see, exactly. Worry is not being responsible. Worry is not going to reduce uncertainty. That's another thing he says too. We think worry reduces uncertainty. Well, if I worry, then that's going to be all right.
So what do you say? What do you say to people that are in closer to retirement age and they just have not been able to achieve the wealth that maybe they've hoped for, and wondering whether or not they're going to have enough money to be able to retire with dignity, as Dave Ramsey would say?
Well, worrying ain't going to make you have no more money. Excuse my grandma. Worry. I mean, if you didn't save but so much money, and once you get past children and kids and houses and lands and everything else, you're blessed to have any money. I'm gonna tell you that now. And if you are blessed to have some money, you have to learn how to be content with what you have. You just adjust yourself to what you have and say, this is where I am. But here's what I believe. I don't think it's too late as long as you can move around, walk, and think. I'm the kind of person, I might be working till I'm 90. I don't know. Y'all better pray. I'm not saying I'm a pastor to them. Now, that's another conversation. But I'm not against pastoring for as long as I told y'all. I'll give you 10 years and we're going to look at it again. I'm 66 now. I'll be 76 then. But, I'll look at it in 5 years. I'll look at it in 10 years. I'll look at it every year after that. I keep saying that because I may be like Jerry West. He's 90 years old. He was still working. Yeah.
One of the things that you said is that we were taught how to worry. Do you also think that maybe we've been taught that we need to retire at a certain age, as opposed to the book Thou Shalt Prosper with Rabbi Lapin says your answer should be, when people ask you when you're going to retire, it's like never. So do you think that's something we've been taught, or?
Oh, that rabbi guy's a great guy. Let me tell you, I think, I don't tell people never for this reason. This is why I don't tell people that. In my position, I think the church should aspire to encourage young people to leadership. I came in my early 20s and I'm 66. I think that's a long time. And I think that,
well, not necessarily that you never retire from pastoring, but I'm talking about in terms of just working. Like you say, you may still work in some do other things in some other capacity to still share your gifts, earn money.
I believe in that. Now I'm gonna tell you, personally, I don't see retirement. The reason that people retire, let me say it this way: people retire because they want control. That's why they retire. I believe that if they can have control and have money and have health and have a purpose, I think you should work your purpose until you finish your course. Paul worked until he finished his course. I see a lot of runway in front of me. I see a lot of potential. But as a matter of fact, one of the things I see is it took a long time to get sense. It took a long time. I mean, it took years for me to figure out, don't spend all your money, save some money. It took years. Don't give it all away either. You don't live just for your children. I never say that, ever. I never say that. I never, ever say it. And I will never say it. I don't live for my children. A whole life is for my children. I never say, because that ain't how they feel. And I'm not going to feel that way either. They're never going to say, my whole life is for my parents. They're not going to say that. And I mean that because they love me and I love them. But I understand my granddaughter ain't going to say it. Bless her heart, 9 years old, who just got some money out of me because of her grades. She was so happy to come and show me them grades. And the 2-year-old who's coming up, she's going to be right there behind, I'm sure. I think it's great to have a dream in your life and to say, I want to advance in my life. I think that it is a racket. The retirement industry in many ways is a racket.
In what way?
Well, I mean, first of all, the idea that you have to retire at 65 is just somebody made that number up. And
Oh,
then Social Security kind of made that number up. And then they made it based on the fact that they thought you were going to die at 60. They thought you weren't going to make it, so you would never get the Social Security money. You know, but I fooled them because I got my check. It's coming. Praise the Lord. It's already here. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to tell you, it's coming in a few more days. Again, thank God. And I thank God for it. I can get full retirement money and know I can keep working. I'm gonna keep working too, double dipping. I love it. And I think it's wonderful. But I earned it. That ain't free. That's not free money. Now I put that money in, I saved that money. But I think it's living with purpose. God says, I know the plans I have for you. Probably, Jeremiah 29:11. When I heard that verse as the college student in Bible college, I thought, man, that was a great verse, greatest Bible verse ever. Plans for a future and a hope. When you don't have a future and when you don't have any hope, when you don't have any sense of direction, you just kind of, existing. I like getting up. I live with purpose every day. I have these routines, Sheila. I love them, right? I get up in the morning. And I wash. I have a laundry room that I love. When I built this house, it's a laundry. I love it. And I put my laundry. I wash my laundry, and then I got my little routines, and I make sure my cars are dirty. They got to be clean. And I got all the things I do. I feel good about myself. When I finish my sermons, I feel good. When I finish accomplishing tasks, I want to always feel that way. When I work out or exercise, or when I do something simple, floss my teeth. That's right. I floss. You guys see me every night. I got my little whole process I go through. You know why? Because I feel good. I was thinking, hey, fresh and clean. Wonderful. I love it. I lay out my clothes. Everything that I do every day gives me a sense of purpose. When I see people who are retired, who have no purpose, they're just looking left and looking right and looking down, looking up. I think, well, what you gonna do today? I'm just gonna look left, look right. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I told God, listen, I need you to help me stay healthy so I can keep moving. And I think that if I can do that and work and get paid and still contribute and have value, then I want to continue to do that until I can't do that. I only set a time frame because I believe the church. If nobody's here, if we don't feel as a group that that's what you be, then that's fine. But you've been to churches, Sheila, where you can tell somebody need to do something because everybody here is old. Ain't nobody young coming up in here, and we just kind of going. I'm not putting your church down if you're watching this now. I'm just simply saying I don't want that to be my story. I want young people to be empowered in our church. That's why every fifth Sunday we have youth service, and when they're totally in church, I'm committed to that. I'm hiring young people. My staff is young. You know that our staff is very young. 30s, and I think that's on purpose. 20s. We got some teenagers. Well, no, you're not. No. Youngest one's in his early 20s, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow, 20 something. I don't know. Brian, you may know how old he is. I don't know. Type it in the chat. But I think it's important. And he's not the only one. We got some other young people. We got them in children's church. We got 16 that work in children's church. It's a lot of young people that work for us.
Pastor, we have a comment from Dorothy Ingram. She says, worry does not solve problems. It stagnates growth or solutions. That's good.
Dorothy, that's true. But he says in the book, worry can have a positive moment for you in this regard. If worry makes you look at something that needs to be looked at and brings it to the surface, that can be a good thing. I have been hurt by worry in a negative way and helped. Because I think that if something's not right, it needs to come to my attention and I need to be concerned about it. If we didn't do somebody right, if we didn't take care of something right, you guys do this in church. If you look at my face and say, oh, something's wrong. What's wrong with the pastor? They see me squint my eyes. And so I guess you got a way to recognize that I'm not happy right about now. And that, Dorothy, can be a good thing. If it's managed well. The problem is when worry becomes this controlling thing that dominates your life, so much so that you don't have time to build, like David Ramsey says, a legacy. You spend every day in a state of worry and constant frustration. And so I think that's important. I really do. Now, if you got a question you want to ask me about this, This is about that time. You can start typing in your questions about money, prosperity, finances. The book on legacy by Dave Ramsey. If you have a question about chapter 5, feel free to type it in. I will say this, Sheila, in chapter 5, Mr. Ramsey turns to a number of very fascinating concerns and thoughts that
I love that chapter.
What did you like about it?
Well, I mean, just the title, Your Work Matters to God, because work is one of those things that, you know, I think you're fortunate and blessed when you get to do things that you enjoy, and to be able to see that as something that you do as unto God. I think it's a good thing. And having the right kind of work that you're able to do. And it's one of the questions, even in the book, maybe that'll be a launch question, is why does work matter to God?
Well, I think if you look at the creation of man in the very beginning, if you go back to Genesis, which we can for a minute here, Genesis chapter 2, there is this conversation that God has with Adam about work. That is, and he doesn't really deal with that much in the book, but here, Genesis chapter 2, it says, if we can start here, let's see, the Lord God commanded the man, you're free to eat from any tree, verse 16 in the garden, but you must not eat from the trees of the knowledge of good and evil. The Lord said, it's not good for man to be alone. And then it goes on and says, if I go back a little further here, yes, okay, dust the ground, man. Okay, all right. Start at verse 4.
Okay.
Then chapter, make sure I got the right chapter here. No, I'm in chapter 1. That's the problem. The problem is
yeah.
Got to get in the right chapter, preacher man. All right. Let me just do this. I am going to cheat here a little bit because I want to get to the right verse for a minute. Hold on. Let me tell you what you do when you're not sure. All right, 2:10, the garden. What verse is that, Sheila? Do you know?
The whole subdue the earth?
2:15. Mm-hmm. Yes, the Lord God took the man, put him in the garden of Eden to work and to take care of it. Genesis 2:15.
Cultivate it, yes.
Yeah, it was man's job. And later on, it says he told man to name the animals. So I believe that became man's job. From the very beginning, gave him a purpose. This is what you do every day. This is where you work every day. This is what you take care of every day. I think that's part of God's design. And I think if you don't have something like that in your life, it hinders your ability to develop as a person. We need to have we need to, as he warns us about idleness in chapter 5, that if you are idle, and I see this especially with retired people. I've seen a lot of this. People in my age bracket who stop working. Did you know, Sheila, that 22% of people my age have a job? I'm shocked to find that out. So there's a large percentage of people who are 66 years old who no longer work. And if they're not careful, they'll lose their sense of purpose and they'll become idle. And I think that's unhealthy. I think finding creative ways to stay engaged. And that's what he talks about in the book, the importance of having a work. There's another book that centers around this theme that I always found fascinating, because what some have said is the greatest work is to work for God. You ever heard that? To work in it? I think that's not true.
Well, we have a comment here. So it says, many of us were never taught to create wealth. We were taught to work for someone else. Once the Lord reveals your ministry and you retire, it's time to get into your ministry and create wealth. So I think that's a perfect tie-in to what you were just saying.
But I also think too that some people don't have entrepreneurial abilities. That's a unique skill to be able to go out and create wealth. Some people need to work for somebody all their life. They need to have a job, a place they go that they clock in and they work. It may be part-time, but when a lot of people, when they stop working for someone, they find it difficult to work for themselves. They find it difficult to create money and create wealth. But one of the things, Sheila, about prospering is you have to be really honest about your results. If you're an investor and you're doing day trading and you're not making any money, you're not really day trading. I mean, not really. I mean, you're having fun, but until you make money, a friend of mine told me something once. He said, "Follow the money." You're a singer, but if nobody's paying you to sing, and you just run around singing and making tapes, he said, you need to get you a job because you're not making any money.
But what about this? The second part of this Savannah Music Academy's comment is, once the Lord reveals your ministry and you retire, it's time to get into your ministry and create wealth. I mean,
let me say it this way: the Lord. Let me say it this way. Let me use myself. How did the Lord reveal to me that I was a preacher? You want to know how He did it?
Mm-hmm.
I preached and people listened. So I want you to notice how practical that is. I agree with the person. I agree with you, but I'm just simply saying you can get caught up in, okay, God, show me, and once you show me, then I'll do. The best way to verify that God has given you a gift is it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings fruit. If it doesn't bring fruit, because it's really not so much that I heard God, okay, quiet, okay, I got it now, okay, now I know what my gift is. He showed me. No, it's not like that. I got up in front of a crowd, I spoke, they liked it, they invited me back, then they stopped paying me to come and speak. I started doing revival meetings. I learned that I could speak by people being excited about me speaking. That's so as you approach it that way, I understand what you're saying. Just be clear that if you get to retirement age, if you get to retirement age and you haven't figured out what your gift is yet, that's a question for me. Why don't you know yet? What is it that you're good at? That's your gift, and that's what you have the potential to build wealth on. So if you were a teacher, for example, and you taught and you retired, you got 60, whatever, and you retire now. Okay, now your gift is teaching. You may have another gift that you can discover, but it won't be. God will show you your gift by its fruit. You shall know a tree by its fruit. The results tell you the truth. If you don't know what your truth is, you will never prosper. You've got to know what your truth is. And that's hard. That's hard for some people to face. That some people, I think God can't get them to the place of truth because they're not willing to expand. They're not willing to learn. I'm always nervous when I hear people say, when God shows you, and I understand what you mean. I just want to just clarify. When God shows you, I just want you to understand how He shows you. He doesn't just show you through a revelation and through spiritual moment. He shows you through the fruit that you produce. That's how I learned that I can do this, because of the fruit that I produced. And I thought, okay, well, if 1,000 people come hear me, maybe I can talk.
Well, Liz Albright had made a comment, ask God for wisdom and He will direct your path. She said that's what she did, and especially if this is what you are to do. If it's something that you are to do, just ask God to give you wisdom about it.
But see, now Liz is a musician. She's our first church musician, by the way. Did you know that? She is. She was the first one.
I've heard that before.
She was amazing. She's amazing with them fingers. But she is a music professional. She's and so God spoke to her through that gift. But that gift was obvious that this is what she can do even after she retired. So Liz, you are an example of what I'm saying. It's obvious that you can teach, and a lot of people today, kids have learned to play because of your talent and gift. Hundreds of kids, thousands probably over your career.
And back to the whole work and legacy, how does the work we do impact the legacy that we leave?
Well, I think if your work matters to people, if somebody's life has changed, if somebody can say, well, look, my life is better today because of my connection to you. How many people have you advanced? How many people have you? I look at my kids. Do they have a job? Do they have an education? Have they been able to advance in life? That's the sign of my legacy. And the goal is that was my intent, and that is my intent, to make sure that I commit to them the ability. And so if I'm a pastor, that's the same thing. If the people who follow me hear the messages we teach over the year, if those messages help improve the quality of their life, if they find themselves advancing, they buy homes, they buy cars, they get out of debt, they work together as a couple, those are signs that I'm having a good effect. That's what prosperity is about. And that's what we should be doing. And that's success, in my opinion.
In raising your kids, Dave Ramsey talked about the impact that his dad had, and he had used some other examples of individuals that, they passed down whatever that gift that they had. Did you intentionally try to target that with your kids?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Absolutely. In some ways I was good. In some ways I still got work to do. I'm doing pretty good. You find, with grown kids, you discover there's certain elements of what you teach them, they really grab a hold to. And there's some elements they're still trying to grab a hold to.
Okay.
But I do think you want to target the basics. You want them to learn to work. You want them to learn to be self-sufficient. You want them to learn to be independent. And you want them to understand, like he says in this chapter, your work matters to God. You want their work matters, what they do with it. It's important to God. It's important to their future. It's important to their children. It means a lot. And so if you understand that, your work matters, but you also understand something he said, and this is important. He said, and he quotes the book of Deuteronomy, I believe, chapter 8, verse 17. He says, you may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have done this well for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. And so that to me is an important message. And I've tried to communicate that to my kids. You can work hard, you can struggle hard. Solomon talked about that, getting up early, stay up late, do all that. But it's all vanity if you don't understand who gave it to you. God is the one who gave me the ability to do everything that I've done.
I think that relates to what Glenn posted. He said Dave Ramsey explained in his book, the home I have and the truck I drive was a blessing from God, and I don't see a need to apologize for God. So I thought it was pretty cool.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like that. That's nice. So tell me your story, flipping this around a little bit on you. What would be a reason why a person would apologize? What would make you apologize?
Apologize about the things that they have and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you feel there's a sense of you feel guilty, and then you do kind of want to apologize if you don't have the right perspective about it. So I agree with Glenn that was helpful when you look at things in the context of really everything that you have, everything that you own is, God is the one that gave it to you. And I think if you are prospering to some degree, that has a tendency maybe to separate you. One of the things that you've said is it's hard to watch other people not necessarily do as well as they could do for whatever reasons. So I think there's just a lot of factors in it. And this may be strange, but if you were not born with wealth, you have to get used to experiencing having more and how to handle all of that. And sometimes, people don't necessarily make it easy.
I call it prosperity guilt. Glenn. Hey, buddy. Good to see you too. Good to hear you on today. Prosperity guilt. Mm-hmm. It's easy to feel. And I think Christian churches nurture this. I think sermons nurture this. We teach from a one-way angle. Our angle is give. Mm-hmm. That's all we talk about in church. We never talk about how you can prosper, or we never encourage you to prosper. We always saying, hey, you need to be a giver. And so there's a tendency to feel guilty about giving. There's a tendency to feel guilty about having money. You struggle when you have more than other people have. You feel like you have to always sort of explain it away. If you have a nice car, don't drive it to church. You have to somehow make sure that you look humble. And that's a distortion of the New Testament. That's not what Jesus taught. That's not how the disciples lived. I mean, if you got 12 guys who are basically with you almost full time and they got families, they had some money from somewhere. They had, whether it came out the fish's mouth or something, they had money. They paid their taxes. These were upstanding people. Their, families. Peter had a house because his mother-in-law, when she got ill, he went to Peter's house. They had homes. I think it's important to not carry guilt, because I went through it. When I got to 45, I remember $45,000 a year. I mean, I had a moment with God. I was like, oh my God, I am wealthy. Jesus, oh my God. I mean, I'm almost at $50,000. It was hard emotionally. I remember when I got to 20,000, I was struggling. I went and told people, man, I made 20,000 a year. I was telling people, I was. Matter of fact, I told people I'm going to share it with you. I tell people, yeah.
And I think that's a lot of those things. That's why I like the book so much, The Legacy. And one of the things he says is your paycheck is a reward for diligence. And I just love that comment, because I believe in working hard, and you want to get paid well, and then you feel guilty. It's like, man, I got a check, it's a good check. And then you feel guilty on top of that. So I think it's these kinds of setting, the prosperity team, where you can talk about it and how you should frame your mind to think about all of it. I mean, it's just, you're building a life. You're doing what God has created you to do. You go to work, and he said your paycheck is your reward for diligence, but your greatest wealth building tool is your income.
So tell me something for a minute. It sounds like this is something that you've processed quite a bit regarding prosperity guilt. How did you manage to get over that? How did you manage to get over it? I know we're supposed to ask me questions today, but I want to know I want to hear your story. How did you get past that? Are you past it?
Well, I think I'm working my way through it. I think I'm learning to embrace things out. One of the things that I shared a couple of weeks ago is I am a first generation high school graduate, and a first generation in my family to go to college, first generation to buy a house, the first generation to drive a Mercedes and to do all those things. And you got to process all of that. You got to process, but it's being able to talk to people like you and that kind of. One of the things, my thing is, it's kind of like, okay, I just work through the guilt and work through all the other stuff with it, but I'm not going to shrink back from being who I am. And I think you learn to embrace yourself over time. You learn to put things in the right perspective, is what you're talking about in your series, and look at things in a way that is you don't have to feel guilty about it. So I think as you learn to grow and just embrace the life that you have, and it's just a process. And that's why I do love the term that you said, like prosperity guilt. It's like, oh yeah, I always like a template, some type of framework to be able to hang things on. So I think it's great.
I think it's really easy in certain environments. And by the way, if you're watching this, you can type in your questions. If you have a question about this whole conversation, feel free to type it in. Love to respond to your thoughts. So please feel free to type in your thoughts or your questions. I appreciate it. There is a place in my life, a turn that I made, and it's a big turn because I had to. What will make you more aware of the value of prosperity is need. Mm-hmm. When you realize that they can walk in and this is happening to thousands of people right now, and they can just lay you off. They can walk in and say, hey, there's no more money. Sorry. I mean, you get, maybe give you a severance, maybe not. And all the people that are getting laid off are not getting severances. They're not getting what they have today is what they have. Mm-hmm. I think if I could go back in time, I would sit myself down and say, okay, listen, I know how you feel. I know you want to serve God and you want to do great things, but you have to think about yourself. And you have to be unafraid to prosper. You have to be willing to prosper. You have to strive to prosper. I think the Bible says in Matthew 7, seek, ask, and knock.
Mhm.
Ask, seek, and knock. You have to be willing to say, I want to prosper. I want to do better. I want my church to do better. I want us to give more money. I want us to advance so that we can do not only protect ourselves, but we can do for others. And I think if you don't do that, if you don't come to that place, and I am convinced that if you rely, that's why I changed the format to where I don't just talk about it in church. And for the next, we have about 10 more minutes here or 15 more minutes. But I believe that one of the mistakes we make is we have scared people away from the conversation. We've played down even work. This chapter talks about the importance of work. We make it sound like working in the church is the best place to work. And what I do, when people tell me you have the best job and the most important job in the world, I don't believe that. When your house catches on fire, I ain't the most important person in the world because I can't put it out. Somebody breaking in your house, you don't call me. You call 911. I am not the most important person. I believe I have an important job, but I don't believe that my job is the only job, the most important. You get sick. If I'm standing over you, you're in trouble. I'm going to tell you right now, if you get sick, I can pray for you and all that. But if you need surgery or something, you wake up and see me, you need to pray to God real quick and run, because I am not a doctor in that sense. I'm a doctor in a spiritual sense. I have my own doctorate degree and all that jazz, but that's not a medical doctor. So I think, my point is, I think it's important to face the fact that there is value in prosperity. And I think that sometimes in church we run from that.
Well, again, for me, my personal journey, I certainly wouldn't have said all that if you had not asked. But the reality of it is, I grew up with people that did what would be called, blue collar work and that kind of thing. And my step grandfather worked in pulp wood. They got paid on Friday. They were broke on Saturday. I never understood that. It's like you just got the check. I mean,
yeah,
and those kinds of things. So you have to learn. And you just have to learn how to embrace the journey. I think it's good, and see what's possible in your life. We do have a couple of questions here. Sam says, I learned that I am powerless over money, and I need God's help to be cured by my insanity around it. I now keep a record of my income, expenses, pray, meditate, ask God for the next right move. I no longer have the weight of worry, shame, and guilt around money and debt. I know that God is the source of all my needs.
Well, I'm going to give you a verse. God gives us power to get wealth. So I would change my words a little bit, Sam. I would say it this way. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. Okay. Deuteronomy 8:18. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee gives you the power to get wealth. So I want to make sure I understood his comment that he said he's powerless over wealth. Powerless, is that the word he used?
Yeah. I learned that I am powerless over money.
I think you are. I have a lot to do with what I have. I reap what I sow. When I look at my life, I have to say, listen, I worked to have this. I sowed this, so I reaped it. I think I have a powerful input into what my wealth will be, and my attitude towards it, my investment, my skill level, knowledge, and so on. All those things contribute to my wealth and prosperity. And if I want to improve my wealth and prosperity, I improve those areas of my life. I improve what I sow. So the Bible says, Galatians 6, 7, 8, and 9, you reap what you sow. So I think that you do have power. Deuteronomy 8:18, that's a good verse for you to use as a guide for your life. You can have wealth.
Kim English has a question. Can success and legacy be defined by lives changed or impacted, or only through finances?
I think it's all the above. That's what he says in that chapter. It's all of it. It's not just money, and that's a point he makes. I think it's a great point that Dave Ramsey makes. But I think your kids don't just want you to lead them with a good example. They wouldn't mind having a house. Your grandkids could benefit from having resources. And that's why I said in the next chapter, chapter 6, he criticizes Bill Gates, who says he's leaving all of his wealth to charities, to 501c3s. And he says, just kind of jumping ahead a little bit, he says that one of the things that's been in the culture quite a bit is this idea that all the money should be left to a nonprofit or a church or some nonprofit organization. And he said they do great work. And I think he cites that Bill said in 20 years they'd spent all the money. He said, what about the generation beyond that? How about not spending at all? And they probably won't. That probably what's going to happen at that time frame. I'm not sure how that looks today in terms of their spending rates and all, but I think that it is important to see the value of money. I'm telling you, I have been, what's her name again? Who was that made the comment?
That was Sam's, maybe, yeah.
Sam, here's what I'd say. I understand the hesitation to put the emphasis on the money, but I think you're never going to have the money unless you put the emphasis on the money. I think the other things are important, a good family, because he says this in Dave Ramsey's book, family life, relationship, marriage. Leading a good marriage is a great gift to your family. But you have to focus, and this is one of my reasons for doing this. You have to be willing to say, no, my goal is to make money. Sidebar. For example, if you have a business and you say, I'm doing it for Jesus, you're going to go broke. You're not going to make much money. It's when you understand, I paint. My job is to get people's houses and places to paint. And my job is to make money so that I can do good things for Jesus or people. But if I can't focus on money, on raising money, having money, building wealth, if I'm afraid of that, then I could be a good person and leave a good example and good marriage and good attitudes. But we broke, and we're not prosperous. We can't do much to help the hurting, the needy in the world.
Kim asks, should a person quit their gift for lack of secure finances?
If it's your gift, it should bring you some finances, unless it's a hobby. If it's a hobby, see, that's when people get confused. If it's a hobby, some people can sing okay. They can sing, you sing okay. It's like, okay, in the shower and around the house, in church and worship service or something, people you just can sing. But when you get up on the stage, the image, you can't sing compared to those people. So you need to make sure that you don't get confused about a gift and a hobby. If it's a gift, especially one that you're using as a career or something, it needs to be something that people value and that's worth something. The Bible said the laborer is worthy of his hire, but you have to have some labor that makes you worthy of the money.
We have a question here from Alexander. Should retirement not be a time to refire and share the decades of knowledge you've learned to make you successful?
Well, that's if people want to hear you. Now, sometimes people ain't ready to hear you yet. My focus is to offer people what they're willing to hear in a way. Good. So it depends on what you're doing. So in my job, that's what pastors think. When I retire, I get to a certain age, I'm going to retire and travel around to all these churches and preach to all these people and pass around wisdom. I think that's a nice thought. I just don't know if I want to do that. I mean, I don't mind doing some of that, but I don't know that's not, if a guy's a plumber, for example, I don't know that he's going to be able to travel around and share his wisdom. You know what I'm saying? When he finished, tell people what he know about pipes. It depends on, Alexander, what career we're talking about. If it's something like a principal, I've seen him go back and teach other principles, but every career doesn't translate into that. Some do. But some do. I almost want to say this to Alexander. What I've learned is a lot of times people don't want to listen to you when you retire. We don't listen to old wise people enough. People who have wisdom, who have retired, we retire them. And young people, I see them doing this now, and young pastors do this a lot. They want to start all over again and do it their way. They don't want to consider any of the wisdom of the older people. So in that sense, I think that's tragic. But understand that doesn't translate in every profession.
We have a question from Brenda Roberts. What are you sharing when you're in retirement?
What am I? What now? Say it again.
What are you sharing when you are in retirement? What are you sharing when you're in retirement?
Well, you share your experience, like Alexander said. You share your gifts. You share those things. but sometimes it depends on what you do. It's more about you than it is about sharing. Sometimes you get to share, but I just don't, and I don't do this now. I don't live to make somebody else wiser. I try to make myself wiser. I do that where I can. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll got this week. I mean, I'll be speaking and sharing. I do a lot of that. But here, Brenda, the challenge is when people aren't wise enough to hear you when you have wisdom.
But isn't it your gifts for you to be able to share with other people?
If they want to hear you, but sometimes they don't want to hear you. And then you get all disappointed. We have about 5 more minutes here. We get all disappointed, and I've seen it. I've seen it. I believe here's what I do. I have a tribe of people who listen to me that I pour into, and I pray that for years to come I'll be able to grow that tribe, and we'll be able to do great things to help people be better. But everybody doesn't have this kind of influence or access. You may have 2 or 3 people that you get to be a mentor to, and that's your tribe. You're not going to have hundreds or thousands of people that listen to you, and that's not your calling. So I think everybody has to figure out what their gifts is, and as I say, by the results they have. If you grow the fruit and it ends up being that way, Brenda, great. But if not, if it's 2 people you impact, so be it.
What are your thoughts? I know we're close to time here, but what are your thoughts on the comment? I think Dave Ramsey made it in chapter 5. Every successful person I know is a failure.
They've had a moment. I've had them. Everybody who succeeds.
Right.
I love not Dave Ramsey's. John Maxwell's book called Failing Forward. Failing Forward. God, that's a good book. If you've ever had failure in your life, that book says this is how you fail. You fail falling forward. But it's amazing. So I'm a big believer that that's true.
Okay.
So any other questions before we go tonight, before I pray for you? I know you've listened to me. You folks have been faithful. We got about 3 minutes. I appreciate you hanging with me. Any other questions at all before we go?
I'm looking to see if we missed anybody. I don't think so.
I don't think we did. Good. Well, listen, thank you for your time tonight. You've been incredible. Hour and 15 minutes of me hanging out, talking, and letting me share my heart with you. Between 2 books, I got a problem, right? I put the book up again, Brian. Let them see it. Both books. I want you to see what we looked at tonight.
And while he's doing that too, Pastor, we have one final comment from Charles Singleton.
What is Charles going to say to us?
Charles says, some psychologists say that we all have a money thermostat. We subconsciously have an amount limit that if we go beyond it, we sabotage the increase to get to our subconscious limit. I wish Beverly Davis was on here. This is some of her stuff.
Listen, there's a friend of mine years ago. He did a book. He did a sermon called Sabotaging Your Growth. That is so true, Charles. That is exactly right. And I think I realized that I had limits. I told you 45,000 was my limit. I was like, oh my God. And emotionally, you start giving it away. And prosperity guilt will make you give away the money. I've done that many times. You give away because you're just not comfortable with having it. So they used to say money burns your pocket. But I think you're right, Charles. So that was well said. Look, you sound like a scholarly man.
He is. We have Pamela here. We still got 2 more minutes. Currently, I see God making room for my gift that will help sustain me once I retire. But I do have to do the work to prepare for the new thing while still working. Thank you for the encouragement.
Thanks, Pamela. That's great. That's super great. I think it's wonderful. I'm already starting my retirement, by the way. I told you I'm retiring along the way. I'm not waiting till, I get down the road here. I'm already taking time off, cruising and having fun and spending time with my girl and traveling and doing what I can do and working to create new businesses and new opportunities. A new podcast is going to come along. It's called Perspective, looking at issues from the other side. I'm working on that. And there's a new book I just finished. I'm still working on the release of it, but I am really excited about it. It's called The Gumbo Principle. It's not your fault. It's my fault. It's the recipe. It's how we relate to each other. It's the mixture. So that's coming out. I'm working on new projects, new things. I got 6 or 7 other book projects on the table. I'm excited about my future. I'm excited.
Dorothy says, thank you, Pastor, for this teaching. It empowers and inspires me.
That's great. Well, let's pray, shall we? We'll make sure we're on time. Father, I thank you for your time today. I pray your blessing and grace. We thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we give you all the praise and glory for it in Jesus' name. So remember, March the 12th, am I right, Sheila? March the 12th is our next
March
gathering
12th.
online. So make sure you put that on your calendar, 7 o'clock. We're going to go back through and finish off about 4 more chapters out of his book. So get the book, put it up again, Brian, The Legacy Journey by my friend here, Dave Ramsey. And I'm going to throw in another section of the book because he gives some really great tips about worry. So I'm going to bring that book and tag it along too. So we're going to finish off some of his book, and then we're going to also show another book, Brian, since you are so brilliantly gifted at The Worry Cure, 7 steps. I didn't even talk about the 7 steps, but that's a great read. I'm telling you what, it'll help you out. 7 steps to stop
So are you
worrying.
starting at chapter 6 for the legacy journey next time?
Well, 6 and 7, 8, 9. We'll do 3 chapters. I'll lump them together. It's going to be a great study. You don't want to miss it. So jump in there. I may even jump further ahead, but I'm going to lump some things together because I want to get you through this book, and we got to get on to another prosperity book I want to take you through. But I want you to know I'm thankful you came. Look forward to our in-person, which we will put off for next month because, again, I'm traveling, won't be able to do it. So you be blessed. Thank you for being with us. I'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Church,
Thank you so much.
This week, church is going to be online. It's our Sabbath Sunday, so you watch online. But first and second Sundays live at 9 and 11. And I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Take care.